back to Tech on Deck 2015. Scoble, how's it going?
It's going great. We're in the final stretch here.
Yeah, we are. We've been doing really well here. We're here in Sun Valley, Idaho, hunting billionaires.
In your living room.
In my living room, no less. And we have my favorite segment of all tonight. This is my close friend, Hap Klopp, founder of The North Face. Hap, welcome to Tech on Deck.
Thanks, Scott. Robert, good to see you.
Yeah. Well, I've been really looking forward to having you here. I could talk to you for hours. This is a really near and dear subject to my heart. It's about clothing and wearables and what people really, truly expect from their clothing. And you know more about clothing than anyone I know, having founded The North Face, a company we all know and love. And I really want to get your impressions. Before we go deep into wearables, tell our audience how you and I got to know each other, first off. I think that's going to be an interesting story.
It's actually a pretty funny story, but it was at the Outdoor Retailer Trade Show, and I was there. I was on the board of a company that called Magellan's, and it did a lot of wholesaling of travel products. And so when I was walking around, they said, we've got this product out here. It's really kind of different and don't quite know how it fits in, but it's pretty unique and nobody's out there. Well, as soon as they said unique, I got a little bit excited. But, I also said, shit, I know everything about clothing. Nothing's going to be unique to me. So, so I was intrigued. So I went over there and I just, I didn't give any of my gravitas or background because I didn't think it meant anything. But, I'm just asking, now tell me about this product, and immediately Scott goes through a shtick where he has about 40 different products. And I'm trying to slow the guy up. I'm trying to tell him, hold it, but, and I was intrigued, and we talk about wearables, and wearables has all sorts of descriptions to go out to electronics or smart fabrics. But when we started North Face, the race to the wrist. I think it's a little overdone because I think wearables, the problem with wearables right now is it's all for the innovators. It's all for the early adopters. It's generating a lot of information, but nobody does shit with it, pardon me, but they don't. And, so we all get it, and you get the new piece, and I get the new piece, and I like it. And then 5 months later, I see it sitting, it's sitting somewhere, and I'm not working on it. Now, why is that? Not because the concept, I believe, is bad. It's not enough. The inflection point isn't yet there. When it becomes intuitive, when wearables start doing something for you that you don't even have to think about, then that becomes really interesting. And when I saw Scott's clothing, it was about wearables. You didn't even have to know that it had pockets. You could wear it. I do sometimes. I know this is heresy at Scotty Vest, but I wear it, and sometimes I don't have anything in my pocket. But it's a good-looking garment. To me, that's the hurdle right now in terms of the wearables market. An awful lot of the stuff doesn't do much for you beyond that. So
let's dig in. When I say the word wearables, what does that mean to you?
Wearables to me is anything that can be on your body that will be providing feedback to you in a way that is monitoring or assisting or advancing your lifestyle. And it could be your wrist. It could be your mouth guard. I don't know if you've seen that Smart Mouth. Great product. Fabulous product. Basically, it's used by athletes, but you can monitor a number of things like hydration and other levels. It has sensors in it, and you feed that back. Well, as I think we all know as athletes, you dehydrate before you know you're supposed to drink. So providing that information is pretty good stuff. So I see all of that, and I see clothing as a natural extension. I think we're going to get away from the watch. I think clothing will ultimately be that device. Who's going to provide it, how it's going to provide it, I don't know. Some of it is going to have to be carried, and you're the specialist in carrying it. One of the reasons that a lot of the clothing doesn't work right now is you either have to go to conductive fibers without attachments, which is probably a Santoni machine, which is just making a device, or you're going to have to carry it. And people aren't carrying it right now. So the risk becomes natural because most of us have a watch or most of us have a wristband, so we put something out there. But it doesn't last very long. It's not monitoring a lot of the things that you could monitor. I mean, one of the things you can measure is stress levels. And you can measure stress levels, which could be very helpful to athletes, could be very helpful to people. Just, if you're into yoga and you know how to relax, but you aren't realizing, like we get on this and we start talking and you get excited and I get excited and you're holding, whoa, slow down a little. You can tell yourself that with a normal way.
Yeah,
So,
we're sort of in an Apple II age of wearables, right? I mean, I have the Ohm Signal shirt that has sensors in it. It has, like you said, conductivity in the fabric itself, so it sends data over to a pack that you wear. But this stuff is like really nerdy. It's great for athletes who have a reason to study their body in a deep way. But it's real expensive. It's nerdy, and it generally doesn't look that cool, right?
And batteries are also obviously an issue.
Yes.
Most of the stuff have battery issues.
Even on the watch. I mean, you have an Apple Watch, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of reports today that Apple's not seeing very many sales. And when Apple has not many sales, it's a huge number problem. I mean, every startup would love to have not Apple sales, right? But this is hard to explain to people. It's hard to explain to myself why I care about it.
Yeah, no, it is. It's more, I don't know, ego that you have an Apple Watch, I need one. And that's what fashion is about a lot. I have a very contrarian view. I know, billions of dollars are poured into this quote-unquote wearables market. I think it needs to be segregated between things like watches and Google headsets and truly things that are integrated into clothing. And my feeling is very strongly that there's no better computer, no better sensor than your body and your mind that God has created. I'm not a religious man, but I think your body tells you what you need. Now, I believe strongly that there are military and athletic uses and medical uses for putting sensors on clothing, perhaps. But I think any sensor that you can put on clothing could easily be put on a band that's removable. And I feel really strongly about this, having watched so many companies come and go in this industry, fail, and spend millions of dollars doing it, that this is never, ever going to take off.
Scott, you're so full of it. You're so full of it, Scott. What do you?
All right, bring it on.
It's never ever. I mean, nobody says never ever except Scott Jordan. Listen, I believe it's a question of inflection point, and I think that we're making a mistake because we're looking at it from the technology and what can the technology do. We've got to look at it from the customer side, which you pointed out, and very aptly so. But there's going to be medical applications right now. You can measure bodies. This technology exists where you can measure and alert somebody 5 days before a heart attack is going to happen. That's pretty good information. You don't have it.
But you do that through clothing that you change each and every day, or can you do that through another sensor, a wearable watch, which I think does make sense to monitor those things.
Or even a toothbrush, because I've seen a sensor that you put in your mouth and does what Hap's talking about, because the saliva changes when your heart is under strain.
Makes sense.
And so maybe every morning you put something in your mouth.
It's not the right form factor. Clothing I'm going to throw something out at you that's weird, okay? And I watch a lot of science fiction movies, and when you watch those science fiction movies, based 100 years in the future, 1,000 years in the future, movies that were made 100 years ago that have accurately, oddly predicted, the future of where we are today. None of them have clothing doing anything other than what they do.
Well, that's not true. Star Trek has a
pin that takes off just like a watch. That's exactly right. And I'm not saying that that's the end-all, be-all, but I do think it's pretty interesting that the brightest minds in imagination and science fiction writers have never once before come up with clothing that I have seen that actually is useful in any manner. Google just announced with Levi's a partnership to control your phone from your pants. I mean, that's silly to me, that having an ability to swipe here to answer a call that's here. It's a level of.
Well, I mean, they're still trying to figure out. They're still trying to figure out Google Glass. So let's not give them wearable technology.
Well, should we spend a few minutes talking about on the face wearables? Because I wore Google Glass for a year, And I just wrote a CNET article about why it didn't work for me, because I think it messes with our social contract. We evolved as human beings to look into each other's eyes to decide whether you're paying attention, decide whether you're interesting, all sorts of things, right? And the Google Glass put a new screen between our eyes. It confused people.
I completely disagree, and this is why we were born, from cavemen without glasses.
Yeah.
We've learned to adapt to. Okay, we need sunglasses to block the sun from our eyes. We need prescriptions, and that social contract hasn't changed.
Yeah.
I know that you have glasses because you can't see terribly well.
I know, but if I had glass on right now and I start poking at my glass,
well,
and
there is a social contract that goes beyond that, and
and if I pull out my phone right now and start doing Facebook, you can see that I'm doing Facebook, and you go, dude, we're doing a TV interview with the founder of North Face. Why are you looking at Facebook right now? But if I was playing with my glass, you wouldn't have any idea what's going on. It makes you nervous. It makes me nervous when I'm talking with somebody with glass on.
What is the most promising, and we have 5 minutes to our first commercial break, so in a few minutes, what is the most promising use of wearables integrated into clothing that you can envision within the next 5 years?
I mean, the two that are obvious, and Robert mentioned it before, one is sport, the other one's medical. Medical is absolutely critical. One, you've got to get people to be able to wear something that is easy. The problem with the strap is it doesn't work. Frankly, it works okay for me, but I'm not a chiseled body, who has a 28-inch waist and whatever. You try and put a strap on somebody like that, doesn't work with women so well, so you've got some problems there. An item of clothing that can provide some of this information that either could enhance your performance, and in sport that becomes a big deal. And if you get a 3% advance, you get a 1% advance, figure that out what that is over a 100-meter run, that's a pretty important thing. So it's going to have application there. In medical, once the insurance companies realize the benefit of this, or the large people like Cardinal or some of those, it will turn overnight, because you can monitor things as simple, on one extreme, you could monitor Alzheimer's patients so you don't have to lock them into something, and that can be GPS driven, local. Others, when people leave on a medical procedure, first of all, you want to get them out of the hospital. The second thing is you want to get them out, but you can't get them out if they don't know, they can't get more than 10 feet from their doctor. So they end up locking up people in hospitals where every germ in the world lives, because they're trying to monitor them.
A friend of mine's building a new digital stethoscope, because the sensors that are available to listen to sounds are far more accurate than listening with the old stethoscope that brought the sound in through a tube into your ear. And they can hook that up to machine learning now to look for patterns. So you put this on an expectant mother, for instance, and you're going to see problems with babies that you've never been able to sense before. In utero babies. This world is about to explode, but we don't think of that as a consumer product, right?
I was going to come back. The question was, in 5 years, consumer product, and you've covered two uses, medical and athletic. I think there's also military, clearly. But I still firmly believe that any of the applications that you have just mentioned could equally be done outside of being integrated into clothing with a strap or otherwise, and are not that significant.
Think about this.
I'm going to let you respond when we come back from the commercial break. We're going to cut the commercial.
My name is Scott Jordan. I'm the CEO and founder of Scotty Vest. Scotty Vest fundamentally changes the way you're going to think about clothing and the way you live your life. We specialize in pockets and pocket design, and we have really great features from weight management systems, clear touch pockets and key holders, and the patented personal area network as well. We spend hours to think about and engineer and design that pocket, expecting your clothing to do more for you. It's paradigm shifting clothing. Who doesn't want more pockets? I know that once you try our stuff, you're going to come back for more. We make it easy for you to do so. If you have any problems with our clothing, reach out to us any way you'd like, and within 2 years, if you have any problems whatsoever, we will give you a refund or replace the product for you. We really believe in the quality of our products, and it's important that you know that. I'm Scott Jordan, CEO and founder of Scotty Vest, and I really appreciate your business. Thank you very much.
Hap, welcome back. So that was a spirited debate there, and I'm going to push you. Please answer.
Okay.
What are
I'm
the
just saying,
consumer
for the
products
moment,
that
envision this product. Envision this product, a product which is a base layer, mid layer that can sense your body temperature, your body hydration needs, and that will automatically, intuitively adjust the heat or the cooling of your clothing, so that you have something that's automatic. You don't have to have pit zips. You don't have to adjust. It will automatically respond, and it can respond basically in a mapped way to your body. So certain parts of your body that you need to cool more than others, you can do that. It can happen. The technology exists. Nobody's making the product right now, but that would be a dramatic advance where people could enjoy their clothing and just not have to think about it.
You know, there have been some fabrics that have done that. They've been out for some time. I forgot what they were called.
Change.
Yeah,
Face change.
You know, and here my take on that generally is that that's what your body does. And you know, when I go outside and it's cold, you know, and I don't dress correctly, you know, my body says get inside and you know soon or adjust and be prepared to be cold a little bit. So I mean, I get it. I just don't. I know I'm a naysayer, and which is odd because I probably have been the only guy making money in true wearables in clothing.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, whereas most other folks are just talking about it and spending money. Under Armour has invested a lot of money. They think that's where the future's going. That Ohm shirt measuring, you know, your pulse. I mean,
and you're breathing, right? Because you're breathing, your chest is expanding, and stress levels. You can study that in a whole another way. You know, how we breathe, how we move, how we interact with the world is interesting. There's brain sensors, too, that you're going to wear. You know, Muse is a company, a startup out of Toronto, that you wear on your forehead, and it has 4 sensors that actually study your brain activity, and it's pretty interesting. I just think this stuff is out in the future sometime. What's the breakthroughs that's going to make this a consumer thing, you know? I mean, the Apple Watch just came out, and it's still sort of lame, you know.
I agree. I mean, it's not a breakthrough to be clever or cute, because in today's world, the product life cycles are really short on that stuff. And you have to have something that provides a perceived value, just a perceived value. And I don't think it does right now, other than the fact that you're cooler if you're at the bar, you know, with somebody, and you pull up the watch and you have the watch or you have the Google Glass and nobody else does. To me, that's not sufficient for a product launch. To me, that is just, you know, it's clever. I like it. It's fun, you know, and I'd be the first one to grab it. And if somebody says, do you want to try this product out? I'm going to do it. But that's not creating a market. To me, the breakthrough is going to be when you have a perceived value. That's why I think medical or sport are the two that are obvious. And you can do it easier with clothing than you can with bands or things, because bands are uncomfortable. If you put it on your watch, you still don't have enough life. You don't have enough battery power. You can put battery power into clothing. There's ropes now that are basic batteries, you know, the inside and the outside, or the anode and cathode. You could do that so it could loop. You know, and the fact is, if you start putting that in clothing the way Scotty Vest puts something into clothing, it'll be good to carry. I mean, half the time people got some battery that's a big clunk, and if you ever fell on it, if you're in an active sport, you'd have a broken rib or something.
Now, Scott, you've called your clothing technology embedded or technology embedded clothing, right?
Enabled,
Enabled clothing. And you've put wires into clothing and stuff like that.
So my philosophy on that is we built a brand around designing clothing that makes it easy to carry the electronic devices that are on the market today and that are likely to come on the market in the next 3 to 5 years. So we've been designing clothing that accommodates iPads, iPhones, iPhone 6s, but more importantly, we have a patent on the incorporation of wires into clothing so that you can attach not only the headphones, but most importantly, the power. Because no matter what you have now, your limitations on electronic devices are always going to be by the power that you have. If you're wearing clothing, you want to be able to wear it for 12, 18 hours. And any of the wearables that exist are only limited to, that I've seen, to 8, 10 hours. I'm pretty impressed with the iPhone watch, but even still, it's limiting. Your iPhones, most people can't get by heavy usage without 4 or 5 hours of running
Yeah.
through a battery.
Almost everybody's using the phone as a battery source and as a storage device for information. It's their computer, but hence you're not free of it. I mean, it just makes it cheaper.
Isn't this a problem of cost, really? Because
Yeah.
I can get a T-shirt in China for $3, $4, and if I'm going to put any sort of wires or sensors in that clothing, the cost is going to go up to hundreds of dollars, and that really limits the ability for me to wear it around and afford it. Now, if I'm an athlete and I'm trying to win a gold medal, that's one thing. I'll spend $1,000 on a garment and have a team of people watching my readings off that and analyzing it and building working with me on my workouts. I'm not that guy. I don't know if you've noticed.
No, and that's why I feel that the consumer model just will never exist. And I have high.
Never's a long time.
I believe that. I really believe that. I won't be around to judge that, but I really believe that. I just think if there's a better way to do it, people will find that better way, better, less expensive, less intrusive, easier way to do it. And I also think that we're tinkering with something that, for the most part, works really well. You can't improve upon it. And another thought is that just because there's data that could exist that could tell you when you're dehydrated or tell you when you might have a heart attack 5 days from now, that data already kind of exists now, but sometimes too much information is too much information. I know so much about my website, my people who are visiting, and I don't have the bandwidth to consider not any of it, but most of it. So,
but I've seen sensors that athletes wear from Mayo that show muscle contractions and other factors. So if you're doing a workout, they can really study: are you pushing your muscles to the deepest extent, right? And if you're playing in that 1% and you're trying to be a gold medal athlete, which there are a few here in Sun Valley.
Every major sports commissioner is here now, so this might be a topic on conversation.
But that's a very small number. It's not a consumer product. I mean, we've seen people. I know a clothing designer who builds clothing for Madonna and Rihanna and all these performers, and he puts LEDs into the clothing. Right. It looks really, really great, but he complains all the time. He says these wires break, the batteries die, the LEDs sometimes don't work, and cleaning these clothes, which are very, very expensive garments. These garments cost $10,000 and $20,000 in some.
Robert, but those are short-term problems. You'd have those with any technology. The technology is improving in terms of you don't need wires, or you can have conductive fibers, and that So to me, that's short term.
So what's the breakthrough?
There's another market which you haven't talked about, which is a personal protective equipment market, the industrial market. There's so many needs for safety that are dictated when you're working around oil and gas, or when you're working in timber, or when you're working in other areas. And I would take issue with what Scott says, his body is the best indicator of whether he's cold or warm. If you're working outside, I mean, even if your body's telling you cold or warm, you don't know how bad and how close you are to frostbite, or you don't know how close you are to some of these things. It's like hydration. You don't know when you need to drink water in time to get it in. You can tell that from measuring it on the body. And if you have something which is comfortable and reasonably stylish, not dorky, and that is durable and is washable and is all those things, I think you got a market.
What's the breakthrough? I mean, diabetics are seeing a breakthrough because I visited an R&D lab in Ireland where the needles that go underneath the skin are now made out of silicone. They're very small. I put my finger on it and it felt like sandpaper. It's a breakthrough for diabetics who used to have to prick their finger with a needle, right?
Yeah.
And now I could imagine a wearable that's going to be on my side that's studying my blood glucose level or something like that, or on my finger that I just touch it a couple times an hour and it reads my blood glucose level. But what's the breakthrough that's going to bring this stuff down in cost and actually get it to us on our bodies where we are not wearing anything today? I mean, we're both nerds, and we both have an Apple Watch. Well, we have an Apple Watch on, but
we're coming towards the end of our half hour, and I want to wrap up with a couple of questions and thoughts, and want to let you have the last word here. Number one is, it's 10 years since I've known you, at least. I think it's pretty close to 10 years. Are you surprised that wearables, this is the same argument we had 10 years ago.
Is it really?
Yeah, we've been talking about this for 10 years.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because
it always would be further ahead.
Every entrepreneurial venture takes twice as long, costs 3 times as much as you ever think. So, and you and me, Robert, we dabble, and dabble is probably the right word, in leading edges of things. We're seeing it long before the normal customer sees it and gets comfortable with it. So I get comfortable with something that, I've got so many things from the North Face that are still sitting in my closet because they were great ideas, but they were long before they needed to be out there. So it doesn't surprise me, irritates me a little bit, but come on, get it. It's not that bad.
So the last question I have for you is the billionaires are 1 mile away. What would you want them to be thinking about and for the future?
What would I want them to be thinking about, or what would I not want them to be thinking about?
Both.
Well, what they've got to be thinking about is the change that's happening in society. It used to be that all the power is with manufacturers, and big companies and big manufacturers dictated it. Think of Henry Ford. You can have the car any way you want. It's going to be black. And everything was done by massive campaigns and limited production. And then the power shifted, and the power shifted to the retailer in the middle. And the retailer started dictating what hours you could get to something, what the price points are going to be. If they didn't like what the manufacturers would do, they'd private label, and they were dictating everything. And they were, some manufacturers still did it, but branding issues. That arc of power has shifted to the consumer with the advent of the web. The consumers now believe they can get what they want, when they want it, how they want it, at whatever price they want it. They can use all the tools of the web. The reality is, as a result of that, there's a huge amount of diversity that the customers are demanding. How do you scale a business when the customers want infinite diversity? How can you make a product which is diverse? Maybe you could do it with wearable technology, because you can change the look of it with LEDs and colors all the time, so you could have the same basic design. I think it's going to be close to home manufacturing. I think that's part of what's going to bring it back to the U.S. because you make shorter runs. But how do you build a scalable business? The billionaires are always making money on something that scales from 0 to 100 million in 18 months, and then sell. But how do you build an endurable business that's going to be $1 billion business when the consumer no longer is just going to go to a few people? You don't have a few television stations any longer. You have infinite number. You don't have 3 people singing to you. You've got millions. How do you?
And we were talking about that, all the noise. This has been a fantastic interview. I really enjoyed talking
That's a
with
great
you.
wrap-up of the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Because every single speaker we've had on has been talking about this world of infinite diversity.
Choices, and how do you break through the noise?
Well, Scott, as you know,
how do we...
I get the two of you, and I can talk forever. So it's so interesting, and it really is. So,
well, I'd like to thank our. I'd like to thank our sponsor. I'd like to thank you, number one, Hap, for joining us on the show. Ustream for providing the live stream. Cisco for the backbone of the teleconference has provided this rack space. NewTek, TriCaster, Syringa for our internet service, and of course, Scotty Vest.
Scotty Vest.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Scott, for offering your home to us to do this. This is awesome. And
We'll do it again.
Thanks to your team, by the way. There's been a lot of people working behind the scenes,
Yeah,
holding up signs and getting us food and making sure that our lives are great. And I really appreciate what they do.
Thank you.
So,
Thank
thanks.
you.
So thanks, Hap, and
Take care.
thanks everybody.
Take care.